She made me like.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our 7th annual Women of Distinction Awards ceremony here on Zoom and Facebook Live. I'm Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright, joining you from the state capitol in Albany. Every March, we celebrate Women's History Month to remember the remarkable women who have fought to give the next generation a better future. We stand on the shoulders of trailblazers like LGBT icon, the late Edie Windsor, and her spouse, Judith Kaysen Windsor, is joining us this evening. Wow. And the late Roe versus Wade attorney, Sarah Weddington. I recently returned from speaking at her state funeral. We refuse to accept the status quo. These women left their mark on our state and on our nation. The fight for equality extends beyond gender. The battle for workers' rights has been fought and has come a long way since the labor movement at the turn of the 20th century. Working conditions would not have come so far without the dedication of the early activists who stood up against injustice and pushed for better working conditions, including the countless New York women who raised their voices for the working class. Whether in New York's garment district or the domestic worker trade, these activists were integral in improving pay and working conditions for millions of Americans. While we have made great strides, we are working around the clock to ensure that our state budget invests $216 billion in women and in families. Our Assembly One House budget invests boldly in our workforce this session. We are investing over $3 billion in childcare and making critical investments in preventive services to keep children and families together, providing funding for sustainable wages for the essential state and mental health workers. We are prioritizing the health and wellness of pregnant women and new mothers, over $1.5 million to restore and expand prenatal and postpartum care and services under the Medicaid program. And so we continue to work because women, our daughters, our mothers, our grandmothers, are professionals, home healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, educators, students, lawyers, social workers, photographers, and nonprofit leaders. And more across our great state, they deserve our support now more than ever. Women who are paving the way in our community. Before our presentation of awards this evening to our distinguished list of honorees, I'd like to introduce our special guest speaker, financial consultant, Holly Buchanan. She's a popular speaker, trainer, and author. She works with financial companies and professionals who want to grow their business by understanding how clients make financial decisions, buy financial products, and choose financial advisors. Holly is the author of Selling Financial Services to Women, What Men Need to Know, and Even Women Will Be Surprised to Learn. Holly also works with professional women on how to win trust and credibility to be more successful in their careers. Welcome this evening to our keynote speaker, Holly Buchanan.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you for all the great work you do. I mean, I know everybody's very familiar with Rebecca, but what a champion. We are so fortunate to have you. So thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you tonight about women and finance, women and money, because it's such an important topic. And I want to start by asking everyone a question. If you had to choose between the 4 secrets to the retirement of your dream, reading that article, or the 4 biggest mistakes in retirement planning and how to avoid them. I'd be very curious, but like I can't see you all right now. But when I asked that question, it's really interesting that about 2/3 of the women choose the 4 biggest mistakes in retirement planning and how to avoid them. And about 1/3 choose the 4 secrets to the retirement of your dreams. And why that's so important is when we talk about women, people think it's one monolithic group. And that always cracks me up to think, well, women want this, and this is how you speak to women. So I want to acknowledge, especially when it comes to women, there are different personality types, different ages, different factors that affect how we think about money. So I work with the financial services industry, with those professionals. And I was very interested about 15 years ago, what's the difference in how women buy financial services and products, how they make financial decisions from how men do those things. And I thought, it's the financial services industry. Like, surely they spent tens of millions of dollars on this research, but I could barely find anything out there. And most of it was just blasé stereotypes. So I did my own research. And one of the most interesting things, I looked at women under 50 and women over 50. And my research partner on the women over 50 came back to me and he said, the women are asking which company is doing the research, because no financial company has ever asked them what their opinion is on anything. I was like, whoa, something's going on there. So a couple of big things came out of that. But one of the big things when I talk to the financial services industry is, you all know, like, women have the money. And by the way, boomer women are going to have all the money, right? We're earning more money than ever. We're inheriting from our parents, the last generation who still has money. And women tend to outlive their spouses. So I'm kind of always amazed. I'm like, oh, women, a small segment. I'm like, no, we're going to have all the money. And the younger women are going to college, graduating from college in higher numbers than men. Millennial women are putting off getting married. So more women are the breadwinners. They have the money to invest. There's a big market. So when I was talking with the financial services industry, and here's some good news. From even 10 years ago to today, they do want to do a better job of serving women. Like, they do realize we could do a better job here. There are some that are still stuck in old traditions. But the question I get is, how can we do a better job of serving women? So that's when I went to the research. And one of the things that came up was the question I asked, what financial issues are you most concerned about? And I think this started to get to the disconnect. For women, it was feeling financially secure was far and away number one, followed by having a comprehensive plan in place, getting out of debt. Retirement planning was pretty low, and outliving your money. And when you look at the financial advertisements, like, it's the older silver-haired couple, they're on the yacht sailing off into the sunset, and you're like, how is that really addressing any of the main concerns that women have? So there's absolutely a disconnect between the industry's message and what women want. But the other thing that came up, because when I interviewed the women, and I was talking to a woman very successful in the financial industry, and I said, so who's making the financial decisions in your household? And she said, I do the day-to-day budgeting and planning, which is very common. But she said investments, she said, that's the one thing I trust my husband to do. And so she realized, she's like, I know, I need to be more involved in it. But that wasn't an isolated case. So every woman knows money is important. I don't think there's any woman out there that's like, money, nah, whatever. We all know money is important, but if women aren't getting more involved, especially in some of the longer term planning, why is that? And I think a big thing is, and I want to pause for Rebecca. Do you want me to keep going? Because I know we do want to hear from Mark.
Let me just cut in. Wow, it's fascinating what you're saying. But we have with us this evening Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. He has been the city councilman for the Upper West Side and chair of the Health Committee previously, and now he is representing, we are so fortunate to have him, the entire borough of Manhattan. And so we thank you, Borough President, for joining us this evening. Please, welcome. I think we need to unmute our borough
Got it.
president. Women's
Hello,
History
Assembly
Month.
member, and I am
Take
so
it
sorry
away.
to interrupt Holly Buchanan because that was amazing. I was learning something. I know the entire audience was enriched, and we can't wait to hear what more you have to say. I had to be here tonight, Assembly member, first for you, because you just continue to lead for us, for the East Side, in so many ways, delivering for women and all of us. And I'm really grateful for your service and your leadership. But my goodness, do you have talent for recognizing leadership? Because you are honoring tonight an incredible collection of leaders, many of whom I happen to know. And I just want to say a word or two about a few of them. Flora, I've got to be out there campaigning with on the street. Flora is absolutely a killer out there. Encantado de verla, Flor, de nuevo. My buddy Kim Moscatola. I mean, what an effective activist with compassion, with so much heart. Kim, I admire you so much. Rebecca Weintraub. I mean, now I know there's at least 2 generations of amazing women leaders in the Weintraub family, counting your mom, Sarah. You guys do such great things for progressive, principled democratic politics on the East Side, and in the case of your mom, citywide. But I'm especially thrilled that you are acknowledging the Director of Community Affairs in the Manhattan Borough President's Office, Trisha Shimamura. Oh my God, the Borough of Manhattan is so lucky to have Trisha in this role. I am so lucky. One of the most capable people I have ever worked with, who has just gotten off to a brilliant start managing the very big and sprawling, complicated portfolio that is community affairs in the Borough of Manhattan, with 12 different community boards and 100 neighborhoods, each with its own issues and its own leadership and its own internal rivalries. It is a very challenging portfolio, but she's managing it brilliantly. So congratulations to you, Trisha, to all the honorees. Thank you, Assembly member, for recognizing these leaders and for letting me say a few words. And thank you, Holly, for allowing me to barge in. Thanks, everybody. Great to see all of you.
Great. Thank you so much to our borough president. You are a true feminist, and we appreciate you and all that you're doing for the borough of Manhattan and for Women's History Month. So we thank you and for all that you're doing. And yes, one of our honorees this evening, Trisha Shimamura, former community board 8 member and activist who's on your staff. And we're so fortunate to be honoring her this evening. And we do have on the line America's Congresswoman, Carolyn B. Maloney. She's at another meeting, so she's unable to Zoom in with her visual, but I have her on speakerphone and she'd like to deliver a few remarks. Congresswoman.
Thank you, America's Assemblywoman, but I wanted to come in and congratulate Trisha Shimamura in being honored tonight and all of the honorees. Trisha worked for me, so I know firsthand her capabilities, her dedication, her effectiveness, and I just want to thank you. She deserves to be honored. She is incredibly talented. Carrying a lot of the East Side Esplanade was a lot of the work of hers, and I congratulate her and all the honorees. This is Women's History Month, and one of the ways that we can celebrate it is by recognizing the women on whose shoulders we all stand. And I have done that by passing a National Women's History Museum on the mall. I was walking around the mall one day and thinking about what could everybody get behind, Republicans and Democrats, and maybe bill support for the Equal Rights Amendment, which is a prime goal of mine to be ratified along with Rebecca. And I just noticed there were no women. I was walking around, where are the women? Where are the women? They had everything, air and space, law enforcement, stamps, you name it, but no women. So I put in the bill, little did I know that it would become a 15-year constant battle to finally get it passed, but I finally did. And we are moving forward with it. We're looking for a site, and it's going to be the first. I thought it was just no women's museum on the mall, but there's not one anywhere in the United States. So we'll be the first woman looking comprehensively at the contributions of women under the Smithsonian's direction. We have passed a bill that half of it would be paid by the federal government and half would be raised privately. But what greater way to teach the young girls and boys about STEM than to see women that have already accomplished it and to really be inspired by the women that went before us. So I'm working on that project. Trisha worked with me on that project too, when we both worked together. And I'm not going to stop till it's completed, and I'm not going to stop till the women's the ERA is ratified. And I got a letter today from Larry Tribe, a constitutional scholar, and several other constitutional scholars saying that we have met the requirements of Article 5 of the Constitution, 2/3 vote of the House and the Senate, and 38 states ratifying it, and that the archivist should certify it. So that's my big push tomorrow, and I'll be sending Rebecca a copy of the letters that came in from the constitutional scholars to send to all of you to see our latest steps in working to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. I wish I could be there in person or on Zoom, but I'm actually in another meeting. I want to congratulate the Assemblywoman on her Women's History event and all of the honorees tonight. Thank you, and I yield back. Okay.
Thank you to America's Congresswoman Carolyn B. Maloney, who I have on the phone here, for all that you're doing to make the ERA, the Women's Museum, and so many other issues a reality, like the Second Avenue subway. So thank you again for joining us this evening. And now I am going to take it back to Holly Buchanan for this lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Carolyn and like everybody who's doing this amazing work in the ERA. Like, wow, I always say now more than ever, but no, really, now more than ever, we need the talent that women bring to the table. And it's why I'm such a passionate fan of women stepping up to the table financially and in everything they do. And I won't go on too much longer because I do want to hear, we've got just amazing nominees and honorees tonight. So I want to turn it back over to them. But I would just wrap by saying this to everyone, that I don't think the issue is that women aren't motivated to be more involved with money. It might be more of a prioritization issue. But I think it's also this that we don't talk about very often is there tend to be there can be shame and judgment around money and money issues. And something that I work with professionals on is to say, hey, how can you provide that safe space to have those conversations? It can be tempting to be like, your head in the sand, especially right now. It's like, oh my God, the markets, what's going on? It could be really crazy. So I would just leave you all with this. And it's a story about, ask for what you're worth, get involved, like have the courage to really dig in. And on the ask for what you're worth, I was pitching a presentation and I really wanted a paddleboard at the time. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to actually add the cost of the paddleboard onto my presentation pitch price. And the client didn't even blink at it. And I'm like, oh, wow. So in every presentation, I started adding that in, that I started adding 2 paddleboards. And what I took away from that is, what do you really care about? And paddleboard is something that I'm passionate about, but is it something for your family? Is it something for you? Is it a political cause? Like Rebecca and I were talking about how important it is for women. Like, write that check in your name from your money. If it's online, contribute it in your name. Like, money is power. And I think the number one is absolutely grow your money, but also how can we earn more money? So a big part of that is asking for what you're worth. Really do that stretch and start with something small, like a paddleboard. What could you add in order to charge more for your services? Because the work that Carolyn and Rebecca and everybody is doing right now is so important. And for us to come together as women and contribute that money to the important work they're doing it's just so huge. So I would just say to the honorees tonight, I've read up about you. You are amazing. I want to toss it back and hear more about you. But Rebecca, like you, wow, you're my goddess. Like, thank you. You work so hard. You work harder than anybody else I know. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Holly, for bringing us your informative words and sharing your financial expertise with us this evening. We deeply appreciate it. And I see some former honorees on this evening, Helene Goldfarb and Dr. Elaine Walsh, and raise your hand if you're a former honoree so we can recognize you. Let me switch to gallery view here. So now we're going to start to recognize our honorees this evening, and we will lead off with Mary Nell Hawk. Upon discovering the East River Crew Community Recreation and Education on the Water in 1999, she joined the nonprofit's all-volunteer board as a passionate advocate for free open water rowing for all on the East End and Harlem rivers. Can we spotlight? Yes, thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Mary Nell and the crew are engaged in a new round of meetings with elected and community leaders to make sure that New York City Economic Development Corporation and the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation commits to rebuilding the East 96th Street boat launch to its original footprint. Very, very important and something that I support. So Mary Nell, thank you for being our honoree this evening and for all that you've done. And I see your supportive spouse next to you right there. Thank you for joining in this evening. Our next honoree is Carol Grocky Lewis. Since 1995, she's been a faculty member at the 92nd Street Y Art Center and Ceramic Program, where she has taught both children and adults, as well as being a teacher artist at the 92nd Street Y Center for Arts Learning Leaders, in which she's brought the joys of working with clay to numerous children in K-9 public schools in East Harlem. Her website can be found at cgl.pottery.com. Thank you for all that you're doing and congratulations on being one of our honorees for Women's History Month. Our next honoree is Kim Moscatola. She has spent 20 years working in television news before moving into the nonprofit world. She currently works as Director of Communications and Digital Outreach for Hunger Free America. She also serves as the elected Democratic District Leader here on the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island, working to help Democrats in New York and around the nation. She's involved in many, many campaigns. She lives in Yorkville with her husband, John, and their two cats, Winston and Franklin. Congratulations, Kim. Our next honoree is Shirley Mal. I met Shirley Mal when we were both very involved with the Feminist Press, the oldest feminist book publisher in existence in the world. Shirley is an educator and has worked with foundations, corporations, businesses, and local governments and nonprofit organizations to develop and implement programs to support minority students and encourage girls to study STEM fields. She served as Associate Director of the Educational Partnership Center at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and as Executive Director of the Westchester Education Coalition. And I personally saw what she did for the Feminist Press STEM and Girls Studying Science program. She was also a former Chief of Staff to Donna Shalala when she was the president of Hunter College. Shirley is a graduate of Hunter College and holds an MA and PhD from Teachers College at Columbia University. It's great to see you, Shirley. Congratulations. Our next honoree, Joan Roth, was a pioneer in uncovering the problem of homelessness among women. She photographed and interviewed many women who lived in the streets in the 1970s, a time of little interest and virtually no understanding of what was happening to these women, and contributed invaluable information about the way that they live and how some of them became homeless. As the principal investigator, Ms. Roth's research was in preparation for the fund's 1983 report entitled Shopping Bag Ladies. I love it. Homeless women helped to develop the rationale for providing outreach services and housing options to numerous homeless women. Congratulations to Joan Roth. Our next honoree, Brenda Sauer, has lived and worked in the Upper East Side for over 35 years. She moved to the neighborhood to work at New York Presbyterian Hospital as a nurse and is now the director of patient access. She's also an active volunteer working with Holy Trinity Church in preparing community suppers and the Carl Scheer Park Conservancy, where she co-chaired for many years the very popular Halloween Howl. And if you haven't been, you must go when it starts back. It's one of my favorite events. It's really great. Thank you, Brenda, for all that you do. Our next honoree, Trisha Shimamura, has recently joined Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine's leadership team as the Community Affairs Director. And I saw her son, is Teddy nearby? Does Teddy want to give us a wave? During her time at Columbia as Director of Governmental Relations, she was at the Office of Government and Community Affairs. And when I got to know her, she's previously was with Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney's office. And now she's leading numerous community efforts for our new borough president, Mark Levine. Congratulations, Trisha. And good luck with the new one that's on the way. Our next honoree, Betty Cooper Wallerstein, is the organizer and president of the East 79th Street Neighborhood Association. 38 years ago, Betty was waiting for an M31 bus at York Avenue and East 79th Street on a cold winter Sunday, having recently moved into the neighborhood. When a kind gentleman in a passing car said, "Lady, you've got a long wait. This bus doesn't run on Sunday." So York Avenue, with the biggest group of excellent hospitals and offices and storefronts, there was absolutely no service on Sunday. So she contacted others in the neighborhood the following week and she organized a meeting. An overflowing crowd appeared and together they were able to improve slow service daily on the M79 bus with the help of local elected officials. And I call her the mayor of Yorkville, Betty Cooper Wallerstein. Give us a wave. Our next honoree is Flora de Maria Eilitz. I feel very honored to have her on my staff. She is a 30-year resident of the Upper East Side. She works on the Lower East Side when she's not in our office part-time as a licensed clinical social worker. And she specializes in seeing patients with transgenerational trauma, history and domestic abuse, and long-term grief. During the last 3 years, she served as a board member of the Four Freedoms Democratic Club. She's also the co-chair of the Health Working Group at the Four Freedoms Democratic Club, along with Courtney Pharisee. Thank you and congratulations, Flora. Our next honoree is Rebecca Weintraub, and I think I saw Benji earlier today in your lap. Rebecca was born and raised in the Assembly 76th District, where she now represents Part A as an elected district leader. She's an active community member fighting for our parks, schools, libraries, and so much more. She's also served as the vice president of the East River Democratic Club. She lives in Lenox Hill with her husband, Evan, and their son, Benjamin, and she has recently gone to work for Dan Garodnick, I believe, New York City Planning Commission, handling communications and press. Congratulations, Rebecca. Thank you for being one of our honorees this evening. Again, I want to congratulate and thank each of you and to our keynote speaker, Holly Buchanan, for sharing her expertise this evening. Michelle Obama famously said, "Hope and change are hard-fought things. There is no justice for one without justice for all." We all know about the new world that we are living in. We all know about change. We must keep hope in mind, elusive as that may sometimes be. I will continue to fight for the Equal Rights Amendment to be anchored, our rights in our New York State Constitution. As Congresswoman Maloney said, she's working on it for our federal Constitution, and our State Senator Liz Krueger is carrying the Equal Rights Amendment in the state Senate. And so I'm confident that we'll get that done this legislative session. As the late Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, every constitution written since the end of World War II includes a provision that men and women are citizens of equal status. Ours does not. We will never have complete equality until women are recognized in the Constitution. So it's only fitting during Women's History Month that we focus on the trailblazers that went before us, like the Honorable Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Honorable Sarah Weddington, the Honorable Edith Windsor. So we are working very diligently with the State Senate to get the ERA passed. And as we wrap up this evening, I want to thank you, each and every honoree, for being an asset to our community and for you, all of our viewers attending this evening. Stay safe, congratulations, and have a good night.